Welcome to Carolina Sculpture Studio. My name's Clint Button. I'm a granite sculptor, and welcome to video number 84 of the virtual stone carving apprenticeship. Well, we finally got the scotia roughed in all the way around this stone. Corners, obviously, I left them. I'll cut those at the end. But everything else looks pretty good. We had to fix the margin. Everything looks pretty good. And we'll have to cut these in once we get this top polished. So right now, I'm gonna dig out all the polishing gear and we'll polish that top. So it would be nice if all I had to do was come down and carve stone and didn't have to do anything else. But you'll find out that a lot of times life can pull you in different directions. And normally we would have cut this stone, would have set it up, had cuts down probably to this level all the way around, just run cuts all the way around, and then run a couple of rough cuts down in here just to help block stone off. And that would have made both pitching it and, you potentially could have had it sawed in as well, had them do a horizontal cut in to that line. But once this was cut down to this depth, breaking in here, cutting in here to snap it off would be pretty easy. But have one cut here during manufacture all the way around, and then one or two cuts just to rough this to open it up a little bit. You could have cleared this out realistically a lot faster. Doing it all by hand takes a long time, and it's really tedious. But trying to show you how to do it, because you're not always going to be able to count on somebody else to put most of the job together for you. And even if you do, if you happen to do something and make a mistake when you're pitching this and have something pop off or dig, or have something be soft because there's an inclusion in the stone, you got an inclusion in the back of the stone, you got to be able to deal with it. And so we'll polish this top. Should be able to do that. Won't take that long to polish it. And but I'm gonna let the magic of video take over, and in just about a blink of an eye, everything will be set up. So let me go get to work for a while. You don't need to see me dragging hoses and switching fittings, but we'll get to set up, polishing, and I'll explain the equipment and the process and exactly what we're gonna do. So see you in a minute. Before I get everything wet, water, everything out, let's go over these tools real quick. While I was digging out my stuff, like I said, I bought out a bunch of studios over the years, odd tools here and there, and I just wanted to show y'all some goofy chisels that I found. Now, these are made for, these are hand machine chisels, regular, go in a regular hand machine. And for some strange reason, people think that you can carve around corners. Now, if, the adage goes, if you can see it, you can carve it. And this is supposed to be for scooping stuff out, I guess. I can't imagine thinking that you're going to be in a hole with the tool going like this, because it's not going to hit like that. It's going to be going back and forth. These aren't typically what we use. You may think they're a great idea. There's probably a good reason these tools don't look like they've been used very much, because I think they probably bent a bunch up and found out that, the theory is a whole lot better than the practice, because it isn't going to strike. It's going to go straight this way, and so it's going to pressure the stone in the wrong way. I don't know. That's why they're in my goofy box of novelty stuff, hidden in the corner, and I forgot all about them, okay? What I'm going to be using for equipment, got some rubber gloves. I'm going to be using an Alpha polisher, okay? This has lines here. One hooks up to water, I got a quick disconnect. One hooks up to my air hose, and I got a quick disconnect. I'll just screw it on the end of my line for my air chisel, and I'll be able to pop it on and off. I like doing I like doing that because it allows me, I keep both fittings that I need in my toolbox so that there's always one, and I've got an extra shut-off valve right here. So I can clip this in and I've got shut-off. By having extra valves, both here and the regular one on my airline, I'm able to throttle my air or my water even more to get the feed that I want. Because it's easy to have too much pressure and it overwhelms. It's hard to get that right spot. If you can throttle your air, your water back before it even gets to the tool, and then use the adjustments on the tool, which there's a water adjustment on one side and an air adjustment on the other side, you can get it just right. This has a central feed that runs. Now, you use a stack of diamond pads to polish with, and I've got them running from, this says 100, 400, 600, or 400, 800, 1600, and 3000, okay? And then I got a felt pad that I'll put tin oxide on to polish with. And what I normally do is I keep these stacked so that I can take one, clip it onto the Velcro, make sure it's pretty well centered, because if it's off-centered, it stresses the hook and loop on your Velcro. And what happens is, as these get fatigued, especially if this is off-center, it'll go just like a Frisbee. It'll fly across the studio. It ain't fun, okay? So keep it pretty well centered. This one's been worn. You can see where I've rubbed on the edge some. If you can get there, it's not nice and square. But because this is a sawed top, and I haven't seen any stripes. Sometimes you'll have a leftover remnant swipe from the diamonds on the diamond blade, especially if they make an extra pass or it hesitates as it's going through. It may have a little dig. This is pretty flat, so it should polish up. I don't think I've got to do any extra surfacing. But as you use one, you take it off, put the next one on, use it, take it off, and you keep them stacked up in order. And it works really, really well. It's very efficient. It's a great way to polish. Now, we never had these at the studio in Vermont. We'd get in small polishing jobs, and Gary would just take a regular die grinder, just an air die grinder, and he would have like a shaft that's used for putting the sandpaper or whatever in, and he just put an old t-shirt in there, and with tin oxide, after we rubbed and bricked everything to death with old pieces of grindstone to get it rubbed smooth, get it rubbed really smooth, because you do an Ecahoma, you polish the crown of thorns, or you polish the hair detail on Christ. And that was the majority of the polishing we do. We didn't do a lot of polishing because it's kind of a parlor trick when it comes to carving and sculpting. You don't need that gimmick. You know, you'll polish up marble to a certain extent to smooth skin versus having it tooled. And you may do it with manually, like with something like this. You may do it with oxalic acid. There's different ways to go about it. But with granite, we rarely polish carvings. It's seen as a gimmick. It's not seen as a part of the form that's relevant. So, but this is about polishing the flat face to create a differential between the base, flat surface, to create a little light quality on this around the perimeter of the upright die. I did get some cuffs, and these are things you can wear. I think I got them from like a horse washing place. And you could put those on, and man, it'll keep the water from just going down your sleeve and being a friggin' mess. It gets really old, especially when it's cold. When it's hot, you don't mind the water. When it's cold, it's really nasty. So I've got those. I'm apt to wear that. Now, if you have, like, say for instance, we were going to polish this, the scotia, or a surface that had been tooled that was all rough. You know, we had a rough stone and we put it into shape, we got it where we wanted it to be, and then it was time to polish it. The way we do it in terms of granite, and this is one of those, this will kill you. Don't just go out and think it's what the manufacturer recommended. I don't even really want to show the name of the abrasive. We use either 46 or 80 grit masonry cutoff wheels. We put it in a side grinder, you know, with no guard on it, so you'll go to the hospital if you get hurt. So like I said, don't do it. But this is what we do. These are pretty cheap. They only cost, or they last time I bought them, they were still $3 or $4 each. They're really, really cheap. And we use this to flat surface, you know, on a grinder. And I don't think that there's enough damage to this surface. I think it's smooth enough. I don't have to set it up with these. We use these to set up before we go to this 400 grit or 200 grit. And they work really, really well. They're really fast. They're really cheap. The only problem is if you lean on an edge and flex them, they're not designed to flex. And what will happen is they'll fatigue around this core. You'll notice that they start to have some flex, and then they start to have some wobble, and then they just explode. Not cool, man. You can't do that because it'll hurt you. So I don't have a project to show you right now, but this is a preliminary step to polishing. And the Granite companies use these. We understand professionally that, you know, this is a grown-up decision. It's not about, you know, using it. We decide to use it for what we want to use it for. And they work really, really well. I usually keep a paint stick, a paint marker that you can shake, and you know it'll mark on metal. Because once you use this label comes off, and you're not going to know whether it's a 46 grit or a 80 grit or whatever the two grits are we use. So as soon as I start using it, if I don't exhaust it and throw it away, I'll write what it is on it. Okay, and then I know if I've got an opportunity to use it again in the future, that it's for what the grit is. Because you can't just look at them and tell. But I've got a box of them. I've used them for years, and it's not what they're designed for, but it's what I use them for. And it's just a masonry cutoff wheel, and I don't use the edge. I use the face, and I try to keep them from leaning. I try to work as flat as I can. So that's one more tip. But I'm going to drag the hose down, get everything out. I'll get the tin oxide out. I've got a can for getting everything wet, get it all ready, get it all set up, and we'll see if we can get this polished. Okay, we're getting everything hooked up. Got a rubber apron that I wear. You don't really have to tie it. You can. I think I've got a hook on this one. But the goal is to just keep it up off to get the water to run down. I got rubber boots. I wear my gloves. And I do have a squeegee, because we have to periodically use this to clear the stone to be able to read it and see what kind of progress we're making. There is some line. Now you can buy these pads off of Amazon, cheap. And the key word is cheap. I don't know, because they use them in the countertop business when they do, you know, new edges and knockouts and stuff like that in order to polish the edges up so the countertop matches. I don't know how durable they are. These are ones I buy through the Granite companies, and they probably are a little more expensive. They're probably a little more durable. I hadn't bought the ones off Amazon, so I can't tell you. But some people use an electric grinder with a water fixture, and other people are terrified they're going to get electrocuted like that. When we were apprenticing, Jim did all of his work. He did the vast majority of it with a side grinder. He'd use Metabo side grinders with, see, that works really well. That'll shed water off so it doesn't run down my elbow. He used a Metabo side grinder with a rubber, you know, same rubber stuff, and he never had any issues with it being electrocuted. Charge it with the air, charge it with your water. Then you can adjust your water down to where you want it. Check your air, see how it runs. Seems like it's going to be just fine. And we can put the felt pad away because we won't be using that for a while. So we'll start on this. And I'll get this first one going and we'll see how it goes. I probably won't keep all of it on while we're polishing, but I wanted to show you what we're doing. If you're off center, fix it. But this is going to be similar to doing the hand axing. We're going to polish, we're going to cut one side, then we're going to cut in a different direction. We're going to vary it so that we get a good finish. We don't want to leave lines. We don't want it to track, okay? Make sure you got enough water to lubricate it. It isn't rocket science. You just got to be careful not to run over your edges and tip them. So I'm going to go ahead and polish this and we'll see what happens. As you're polishing, like I'm switching up to the next grit right now. I did like 3 courses of going this direction and then going 90 degrees to it over the whole top to try to get level. It's smart if you're working on a surface like this to draw it with a squeegee. And use your light to read it, because you can go over and see if there's areas that you didn't hit. If there's gouges in the stone, you know, from the saw, or maybe you dropped a tool and chipped it. See, I've got stripes from the diamond saw. Right through here I can see there's just one area right here. And I'm going to try a couple more courses before I go up to this next grit to see if I can clean it up. Because I really don't want to put the heavy abrasive on it and cause more damage than I'm curing. I'd rather work it out with this minor grit and go slow. But I got to make sure that I take all of it down and not just this area here where the stripe is, or else I'll have a surface that's not flat. And treat the whole surface. Don't focus on that or you'll dig a hole. Check your progress. I'm about halfway through the stack. I've got 2 more grits to grow. You got to go slow. It seems like it takes forever. It's like axing something and getting something straight or whatever, and you scrape and scrape and scrape, and it seems like it takes forever to get there. And then all of a sudden you're there. The goal is to get to the bottom of the couple of scratches that you'll have, whatever low points are. The goal is to eliminate those and not have to go any lower. So as you approach them, you can change grits and pick up whatever's low as you're advancing your grit. I got a couple places where I buzzed the edge a little bit. I'm going to cut it off. That's why I left it long. If I cut it perfect, it'd have all these rounded edges. Look like crap. But work to lower the whole panel consistently, not just one spot or another. You'll be a lot happier. So, and go slow and do it right. If you don't have a good compressor, you ain't gonna polish with air because it takes a lot. But you can do this with a electric polisher as well. You can also do it dry, just wear a mask. It works better if it's wet. And now, what I'm looking for now is cloudy areas. I've got some right up in here. As you progress through the grit, you'll eliminate the surface, the high points. And what you want is you want to have, when you squeegee it off, you want it to all look the same, not have any cloudy areas. See, if I do that, I've still got a little bit of cloud right there and right there. And when I talk about axis up and I say it closes up well, that means that the crystals have got enough integrity that they hold together. Back when I squared that block of Kershaw granite, way back in the beginning of this whole series, talked about how it was not a quality stone for polishing or carving because it didn't have a lot of structural integrity because of the large crystals. It's a mahogany style granite. We call it a mahogany with the big crystals. And they tend to collapse. And it makes it difficult to polish it well, because what will happen is the individual crystals will collapse either on the corners or the edges, or the whole crystal will break and fall out. And this Georgia blue is a very fine granite. It's prone to inclusions, but it's a nice stone to work with. It closes up really well. And I can look across this surface and there's very few pits or picks. I mean, there's pits and picks because that's the way stone is, but because the crystals are so small, it closes up really, really well. And so we've got a nice stone that's almost ready for the tin oxide. So I'm going to go over and work these edges just a little bit more in a couple of these spots where I can see that it's still cloudy. And it's important that you don't just work this spot. We have to wash the whole stone to try to keep this plane surface, to keep this surface in a plane and keep it as flat as possible. And I can look at my reflection. I've got very little wiggle. Nice, flat, true surface. It's real easy to polish something that changes a lot. Just get rid of the ripples. But to have a flat surface that reflects well, that's tough. So, cool stuff. I like polishing. It's right up there with paying taxes and doing sheetrock. Polishing's a drag. But when it comes together and it's done, it's pretty cool. I think it's pretty good. You know, this is like anything else. At some point, you just got to make an executive decision and say, I've got it as far as I'm going to take it. And I think this is as good as it's going to be. So we've eliminated the scratch. And that went right through here. So now I'm going to use powdered tin oxide and a hard felt pad, and I'm going to work it. And now you can mix this up so it's a slurry. You can just put some on the stone and get it wet and work it on. It's not real complicated. Like I said, we used to use Gary'd use a die grinder with a piece of t-shirt, you know, and a little holder just with a screw stuck in it. Wad it all, tied a knot, and then after we rubbed it and bricked it until everything was really smooth, that's how we polished stuff. We didn't polish big stuff like that, but for carving details, you can do it real simple. You don't need much more than a few old grindstones left over. That's why you save them, to rub it with, get the top all smoothed off, and then go over with something for felt or fabric or whatever on a grinder. You know, that's you know, like a t-shirt on a die grinder. That's all it takes. But just sling stuff around so it's a little messy. I'm gonna wrap this video up. I'm just gonna break it in the middle. I went up to edit stuff and everything's really long. So instead of having a 40 or 50-minute video, I'll bust it in half. And we'll just pick up the next video right where this one stopped. So my name's Clint Button. I'm a granite sculptor here at Carolina Sculpture Studio with a virtual stone carving apprenticeship. Thanks for coming in.